People think justice brings peace. They don't tell you about the silence that follows it, how it echoes through an empty house, whispering her name. My wife's been gone for 5 years. I solved hundreds of cases, but I still can't solve the one that took her. My name is Detective Daniel Reed, and this is the story of how the hunter became the haunted. Before the disappearance, Daniel Reed wasn't the kind of detective who missed details. He noticed the way people blinked when they lied, the tension between words and silence, the small betrayals that gave killers away. For 20 years, he'd been the department's closer, the man who could turn chaos into order. They called him Reed the Relentless. And yet, the one mystery that would break him began in the quietest way possible, with the hum of a coffee pot on a calm morning. Claire Reed's mug sat half full on the counter, steam long gone. Her phone was still plugged in by the bed, her car parked in the driveway, but Claire was nowhere. Police logs would later mark the time of Daniel's 911 call, 6:42 a.m. His voice was calm, too calm. He said he'd woken to an empty bed. The back door was unlocked. No sign of forced entry. No struggle. Just absence. Dispatcher: Detective Reed, we've got units en route. Do you believe your wife left voluntarily? Daniel, quietly: No, she wouldn't just leave. Not her. Something's wrong. In later interviews, fellow officers would say Daniel didn't sound like a grieving husband. He sounded like he was already taking a statement. And maybe he was, because deep down, Daniel Reed wasn't mourning. He was analyzing. Even then, he was searching for a pattern. For the first 48 hours, the department treated it as a domestic disappearance. Missing person protocol. By day 3, the media had found the story. Detective's wife vanishes without a trace. By day 4, Daniel's badge was turned face down on his desk. Conflict of interest. Mandatory leave. To the public, it looked like standard procedure. To Daniel's partner, Detective Laura Finch, it felt like exile. He wouldn't stop working the case, even after they took him off it. I'd find him in the archives at 3 a.m., combing through old files. He said she must have found something she wasn't supposed to see. At first, Laura thought it was grief talking. But then she found the file that changed everything. Claire Reed's laptop, recovered from the house, contained a single hidden folder, encrypted, titled simply, June. Inside, case notes, crime scene photos, and confidential reports from a 7-year-old missing persons investigation. The Rachel Lee case. Rachel Lee had vanished from a roadside motel in 2015. Daniel had led that case himself. He'd never found her body. The case had gone cold. And now Claire had been digging through it. Why? What had she found that Daniel missed? Or worse, what had she uncovered that someone didn't want found? Daniel. Claire wasn't just researching. She was connecting dots. Rachel Lee, Marcus Vale, all the old names. She found something I buried. Marcus Vale. The name still burned. A clean-cut financial consultant who, beneath the suits, had ties to organized trafficking networks and disappearances stretching across state lines.
Daniel had built a case against him, airtight, until Vale vanished days before his indictment. Just disappeared. No trace, no witnesses. The case collapsed. It haunted Daniel for years. Now, every thread of Claire's secret research led back to Vale. By the end of that week, Daniel had mapped their names on the wall. Rachel, Vale, Claire, red string connecting them in a triangle. And somewhere in the center of it all was him. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the idea that Vale had found Claire, or that she'd found Vale first. 3 nights later, Daniel couldn't sleep. He drove 2 hours through rain-slicked roads to the motel where Rachel Lee was last seen. The same one he'd investigated 7 years before, room 12. The same number that had haunted his dreams. The key still fit. He turned it in the lock, and the air that met him was thick. Mildew, rot, time. He moved slowly, tracing the rune's outlines like a man visiting a grave. Everything was exactly as he remembered, except for one thing. Above the headboard, scratched faintly into the plaster, were 2 words. She knew. Daniel stopped breathing. Only 2 people had ever known about that message, himself and Claire. In that moment, the detective vanished, and the husband took his place. He knew, whatever happened to Claire, it began here. He stumbled back to his car, heart hammering, hands shaking. He wanted to call Laura Finch to report what he'd found, but he couldn't, because in that second, the truth began to twist. If Claire had found this room, if she'd seen what he saw, then maybe she wasn't just missing. Maybe she was sending him a message. By dawn, Daniel was back home, soaked, sleepless, and staring at his reflection in the window. He saw a man hollowed out by obsession, a man whose logic was fraying at the edges. And for the first time in his career, he didn't trust his own instincts.
Over the next week, Daniel's house turned into a war zone of evidence. Walls covered in photos, red thread connecting faces and dates, maps stabbed with pins. Neighbors reported seeing lights on at all hours. Colleagues stopped calling, and Daniel stopped sleeping. Finch said he kept saying it was all connected. Rachel, Claire, Vale, even him. He said someone was rewriting the story while he slept. Daniel, if she's gone, it's because of me. I missed something back then, something that let Vale slip away. Claire found it, and now she's gone too. I can feel him watching. When detectives reviewed security footage from the Reed home, they found something disturbing. The camera by the back door, the last one that would have seen Claire alive, glitched at 12:03 a.m. 1 second of static, then darkness. Someone had cut the feed. And just like that, the line between detective and suspect began to blur, because the missing hour matched a gap in Daniel's own phone records. No calls, no texts, nothing from 11:58 p.m. to 12:59 a.m. When asked where he was during that time, Daniel said he didn't remember. He said he was asleep. But sleep studies later showed something else. His smartwatch data recorded elevated heart rates during that exact hour. Something had happened that night. Something he couldn't or wouldn't recall. By then, whispers had begun spreading through the precinct. What if he did it? He's losing it. He's covering something. 10 days after Claire's disappearance, Daniel returned to the motel, alone. This time, he didn't call anyone, didn't file a report, didn't tell Laura Finch. He left home at 11:50 p.m. He was never seen again until the next morning. Police later found his car parked behind the precinct, headlights still on. Inside, his badge lay beside a note, scrawled on the back of an old case file. It read, "If you find this, don't follow me. I have to see where the trail ends." The morning Daniel Reed's car was found, it was raining again. Detective Laura Finch was the first to open the door. Inside, a badge, a revolver, and the note. But what made her stomach drop wasn't the words, it was the smell. Smoke. Old motel carpet smoke. The same smell that clung to the Rachel Lee case files. Finch. "I knew where he had gone before anyone said it. Room 12. He was going back there again. That place was like a wound that never healed." Police rushed to the motel. Daniel wasn't there, but the night manager remembered something. A man, disheveled, mud on his shoes, checked in at midnight, paid cash, asked for room 12. He said he was finishing what someone else started. In the motel trash can, officers found a single cassette tape, old, dusty, labeled only June, the same name as the encrypted folder on Claire's laptop. When the tape was played back, it began with silence, then faint breathing, then Daniel's voice. "Daniel, I think I see her. I think I finally understand what she was trying to show me. She wasn't running from someone. She was following someone. Rachel Lee didn't disappear, she became someone else. And Claire found her. If I don't make it back, Laura, don't believe what they'll say. I didn't hurt her. I just followed the trail too far." The tape ends in static, a faint echo in the background that tech analysts later identified as the sound of waves. By the next morning, Laura Finch had assembled a small search team. They traced the sound to the coastline near Graymark Point, a remote stretch of cliffs and abandoned fishing cabins 2 hours from the city. When they found Daniel's car again, it was parked at the edge of the cliffs, engine cold, door unlocked. Inside the glove compartment, a half-burned photograph of Claire Reed, her face marked with a single red X. To the rest of the department, it was obvious, a detective unraveling under guilt. But Laura Finch didn't buy it, because Daniel Reed wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Inside Daniel's house, the crime scene unit discovered something strange. Behind a false panel in his office wall, thousands of printed files. Not official police records, but copies of them. Every major unsolved case Daniel had ever worked on, each one annotated in red ink, lines connecting names, places, and dates, all circling back to a single name, Marcus Vale. In one file, a sticky note was attached to a photo of Vale's face, written in Claire's handwriting. "He's closer than you think." Finch says, "That's when I realized Claire had been investigating him on her own, behind Daniel's back, and the last place she searched before she disappeared was Vale's old property on the cliffs." When officers reached the abandoned fishing cabin at Graymark Point, it was barely standing, salt-eaten wood, broken glass, gulls circling overhead. Inside, remnants of a fire, a few photographs, and an old Polaroid camera. The pictures scattered across the floor showed images of the same room, taken days apart, the angles shifting slightly each time. In the final photo, the image showed Daniel standing in the doorway. The photo timestamp was from the night before his car was found. On the cabin wall, carved into the wood beneath layers of peeling paint, were 3 words: "I forgive you." Forensics found traces of Claire Reed's DNA in the cabin. No blood, no sign of a struggle, but her necklace was found hanging on the nail above the door. It wasn't a goodbye, it was a message, but no one could tell if it came from love or guilt. Over the following days, Daniel became a ghost. Cameras caught glimpses of him near old case sites, gas stations, rural motels, abandoned roads. He wasn't hiding, he was retracing. A witness says, "He came in just before closing, looked like he hadn't slept in days, asked if we had any old newspaper clippings from the disappearances. When I asked which one, he said, 'All of them.'" Detective Finch started to fear the worst, that Daniel was planning to end it all. But the truth was more complicated. Because while reviewing surveillance from the motel, she saw something she couldn't explain. On the footage from the night Daniel vanished, a second figure appeared, briefly, in the hallway behind him. A woman, her hair long and dark, her face obscured by motion blur. And on her wrist, a glint of silver, the same bracelet Claire wore the night she disappeared. A week later, another cassette tape arrived at the precinct, mailed anonymously. Label, June 2. Detective Finch played it alone in her office. Daniel. "I found her, Laura. Or she found me, I'm not sure anymore. She said she had to disappear to make me see it. The pattern, the truth I buried. Marcus Vale isn't dead. He's been here all along, wearing someone else's face. If I don't make it out of here, tell them I forgave her. I forgave both of us." The tape cuts off abruptly, but forensic audio enhancement later revealed a faint whisper underneath the final seconds, a woman's voice, barely audible. "I'm sorry, Danny." 2 days later, search teams located a collapsed section of the cliffs beneath Graymark Point. Buried under years of rock and debris, they found a shallow tunnel system, old smuggling routes from decades earlier. Inside, the air was damp and heavy with salt. At the end of one tunnel, they found what looked like a small hideout, makeshift bedding, lanterns, food wrappers, maps. And pinned to the wall above it all, a photograph of Daniel and Claire on their wedding day, half burned. Beneath it lay a single Polaroid camera. Inside, one undeveloped photo. When processed, it showed the same cabin from earlier, only this time, the woman's face was clear. Claire Reed. She was alive, but the photo timestamp was only 3 days old. That night, Daniel finally called Laura Finch. His voice was shaking. Daniel, recorded phone call. "You were right. She's alive. But you were wrong about everything else. I didn't lose her. She left because she found out who I really was. The Rachel Lee case. It wasn't just a failure. It was a cover-up. I closed it too soon. I let Vale go because he had leverage, photos, names, threats. Claire found out. That's why she ran. I thought I was protecting her, but I was protecting myself. And now, I don't know which one of us became the monster first." Then the line went dead. That was the last time anyone heard Daniel Reed's voice. After Daniel Reed's disappearance, the department suspended all official searches. They called it a presumed death. But Detective Laura Finch couldn't let it rest. Something in her gut told her the story wasn't over.
Not yet. She went back to where it all began, room 12, the same motel that had started everything. Inside the motel's office, the night manager handed her a box, said it had been sitting behind the counter for months, prepaid, never claimed. The label read, "Property of Daniel Reed." Inside, an old hard drive wrapped in a plastic bag. When Laura plugged it in back at the precinct, her screen filled with hundreds of encrypted folders, all named for women: Rachel Lee, June, L. Donovan, and one more at the bottom, C. Reed. Each folder contained scanned documents, police notes, and digital audio, evidence Daniel had copied and hidden from the official files. But the last folder, C. Reed, contained only one video file, timestamped 3 days before he vanished. Daniel sat at a table. He looked exhausted, eyes hollow, clothes damp. He was speaking directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, then I couldn't fix it. I couldn't save her. And I couldn't face the truth any longer. 5 years ago, I closed the Rachel Lee case, a missing woman, 29, last seen leaving a bar in the East End. Her husband begged me to keep looking, but we found nothing. No prints, no trace. So I closed it. What I didn't tell anyone was that Rachel called me the night before she vanished. She said she had evidence against a man, a powerful one. I promised to protect her, but I never called her back. Her husband's name wasn't Vale. It was Marcus Valentin. He changed it after she disappeared. He changed everything. And when Claire found my old case notes, she realized the truth, that Marcus wasn't dead. He was alive, and I'd helped him disappear. She left because she thought she could stop him, because she couldn't live with who I'd become. If I ever find her, I'll tell her the truth, even if it destroys me." Laura Finch leaned back, staring at the dark screen. For a long time, she didn't move. That confession would have been the end of it, a tragic story of guilt and loss. But there was one more clue Daniel didn't realize he'd left behind. In the metadata of the video, she found GPS coordinates embedded in the file's properties. They led not to the cliffs, but inland to a stretch of forest near the old quarry, a place long abandoned after the mining company folded. Laura arrived before sunrise. The air smelled of rain and rust. As she followed the coordinates deeper into the trees, she noticed something strange, a trail of old markers, yellow tape faded with time, the kind used by search teams years ago. At the end of the trail was a concrete shaft sealed with boards. On one of the boards, someone had carved a single word: June. With help from a local unit, Finch pried it open. Inside the shaft was a narrow tunnel leading down into darkness, and in that tunnel, a single lantern still faintly burning. Near the base, she found 2 sets of footprints, one large, one small, and between them, the remains of a tattered coat, Daniel's. Pinned to the fabric with a rusted nail was a letter, Finch. To whomever finds this, I followed her here. She wasn't running from me. She was leading me to him.
I saw Marcus Vale, or whatever name he wears now. He looked at me like he'd been expecting me. He said Claire made her choice, that she traded her life for mine. I didn't understand what he meant until I saw her, standing behind him, alive. But the look in her eyes, it wasn't her anymore. She whispered my name, and then she pulled the trigger. Don't look for me. Don't look for her. The case is closed. Weeks later, the department received one final envelope with no return address. Inside, A cassette tape marked June, final. When played, it wasn't Daniel's voice. It was Claire's. If anyone finds this, please tell him I tried. I tried to save him from the truth. I thought if I could end what he started, maybe he'd forgive himself. But when you spend your life chasing ghosts, you become one. He once told me justice was the only thing worth dying for. I just hope he's finally found it. The official report lists Daniel Reed as deceased, cause unknown. Claire Reed presumed dead, no body recovered. The case remains closed. But locals near the quarry tell a different story. On some nights, when the fog rolls low over the trees, they say you can hear two voices, one calling out, one answering back. And somewhere out there, in the echo between justice and guilt, the detective who solved every case still searches for the one he never could.